Redux Harmony Part 1. Excited murmuring spread to the stands along with resounding shouts of approval. The announcement of the duel certainly sparked the crowd's fervor. The comparisons themselves, however, were not nearly so excited. Desert Rose and Twilight Sparkle made equal unsettable gestures, and it was to massive surprise. Tracy caught Twilight throwing her an open-mouthed look, but Tracy herself didn't look back. Her eyes aligned immediately with Flair's, daring him to show some sign of weakness or anxiety, which of course he didn't, redoubling her own efforts to look both cool and intimidating. A magic duel was a big deal. It was a direct confrontation between unicorns, one's power, training, and focus against another's. The winner took home all the glory, while the loser would be in front of her audience. It was the kind of thought that would make lesser ponies sick to their stomachs. Tracy, of course, wasn't nervous. Cersei hadn't had a proper duel in years, so he was a little out of practice, and certainly every time she locked horns with Flair in the past, he had come out on top. And undoubtedly, if she were to make a single slip-up, he'd best her once again. But Tracy wasn't nervous. She didn't get nervous. That was for other ponies. Getting nervous could well cost her at some point the hard-fought victory, so she obviously, positively was not nervous. Trixie? What? Snapped Trixie. She cringed immediately as she realized who had spoken, and turned to face her partner, to find that the latter unicorn wore a concerned frown. Are you all right? Twilight asked. Trixie opened her mouth, hesitated, then averted her eyes. Of course I'm all right! Why wouldn't I be? Well, you almost look like you got a stomachache, said Twilight. I mean, not that I don't understand. You've been waiting for a chance to go with Flair since we got here. Makes sense you feel kind of nervous. Trixie saw her indulgent look and grunted. She made to voice an argument. I'm not! But the words seemed to catch her throat. Whether it was a sincere look on Twilight's face or simply some stress of pride, Trixie didn't know. But she couldn't bring herself to lie. In fact, it was very much the opposite. And as she let out a quiet, resigned huff, she looked across the arena with pensive eyes. Flair and Rose were huddled close together. Two of them seemed to be deep in hushed conversation, no doubt forming tactics for this fast-approaching duel. Trixie's eyes remained fixed on the green-coated stallion. I've been waiting for the longest time to get a chance to beat him, she admitted. It's my opportunity to prove I've finally outgrown him, but... Her frown deepened. What if I fail? She closed her eyes, tried to focus on the muffled mumblings of the crowd and not her own treacherous thoughts. I hate you, Flair, she growled mentally. Why do you always do this to me? Hey. A gentle bump on her flatlock made her open her eyes. Turned to meet Twilight's. The latter unicorn was smiling that peculiar smile. The one that said all was right in the world, as long as Twilight had her eyes on Trixie. Twilight opened her mouth, and the words rolled out like a rope to drag her back to reality. Don't go getting all modest on me, Miss Great and Powerful. At first, Trixie just stared. Dizzy blinked. Dizzy smiled. She could almost felt as she could give a little giggle in response to Twilight's prod, but when it came down to it, she could only feel happy. You're an amazing unicorn, Twilight said, leaning in close to speak slowly and quietly. You're not alone either. I'm right here with you, and we'll win together. Trixie's smile quirked up to one side. Is that a promise? She asked quietly. Twilight shrugged. Call it an educated guess. That, along with the confident look in Twilight's eyes she drew back, was enough to drag a chuckle from Trixie. Cocky showmare, Trixie teased. Flashy spellcaster, Twilight threw back. True, Trixie granted, and it was. With a shake of her head remained, Trixie adopted her trademark smirk and turned it on the audience in the stands. She cast off the self-doubt, short-lived powerless over her, and accepted, in its place, to support Twilight Sparkle. The mare whose strength and beauty were the stuff of fairy tales. The mare whose idealistic virtue had driven her to help Trixie when she needed it the most. The mare who could have had anything she wanted, and chose to live in a tree in some backwater town so she could be nearer to her friends. The mare who made Trixie smile. Really great and powerful. All right, folks. I think that's long enough for everybody to get settled, came Broadcast's voice, echoing across the stadium to set Trixie back to the present. Let's get this show on the road. Airmail, fair feather, if you please. The crowd's excited murmuring piped up again as a pair of rare uniform Pegasus stallions took off from a box across the stands. Between them, they carried a pair of small wooden chests. Trixie exchanged a glance with Twilight before turning to watch the Pegasi glide down to the arena. Airmail and Shearfeather touched down with practiced grace. One before Trixie and Twilight, and the other before Flare and Rose. It sent them on their lows, stepped back and bowed their heads. Inside these chests, broadcast began, are 4 pendants, 1 for each duelist. Pendants? Twilight repeated, casting a questioning look at Trixie. These amulets have been enchanted by Princess Celestia herself in such a way that they cannot be removed by magic. The goal of this duel will be to steal both pendants from the opposing team. If your own pendant becomes unclassed, you'll be eliminated from the duel, so make sure to fasten it tightly. Please do so now. Trixie glanced once more at Twilight, then Flare and Rose. The other pair seemed to have taken the announcement in stride. Flare had already mastered his chest and lifted out 2 pendants, each of which were a woven silver material, large golden medallions hanging from the center. Remembering herself, Trixie stepped forward, nose opened the chest on her own host. Inside, resting atop a red silken lining, lay 2 pendants, identical to those given to Rose and Flare. Up close, Trixie could see the golden clasps that had fastened the pendants around her necks, and in front of these clasps, she felt a gentle aura. The voice drew Trixie's eyes to Twilight, who was holding her own mane back with a hoof. Trixie glanced between her and the pendant, smiling in understanding. Twilight turned her head, showing the back of her neck to Trixie, who stepped closer and gently swung the pendant around Twilight's neck. As he bent down to clasp to seal it, her nose pressed up against Twilight's coat, listening a tiny squeak from the purple unicorn. A spurt for Trixie herself as she pulled back. Sure enough, when Trixie tested the clasp by tugging it with telekinesis, it didn't even budge. It felt like trying to pull apart thin air, as there was nothing there at all. It was an intriguing enchantment for sure, but beyond her understanding and skill set both. Casually as she dared, Trixie lifted a hoof to push back her own mane, and turned her own body to deliberately face Flare. He met Trixie's eyes, just as she felt Twilight pressed up against her with a second pendant in tow. Trixie held Flare in an unblinking, confidently smug stare, so fastened the pendant around her neck. Then she yelped, as he felt a sudden, kind of wet electric shock on the back of her neck. Flare, the heat rose to Trixie's cheek as he mouthed wordlessly, facing her attacker. Sparkle walked coolly away, casting a sultry smirk back over her shoulder at Trixie. Trixie's own eyebrow raised in surprise, and the smirk affected her too. Oh, so that's how it is. Don't think I'll let you get away with that, Twilight. By this time, Flare and Rose had donned their own pendants too, already standing ready. Following suit, Twilight and Trixie turned to meet them. Trixie scuffed her hoof against the stone floor, focused her eyes on Flare. Twilight fell in alongside her and fixed her own, some serious expression on Rose. The 2 pairs stood 10 strides apart, facing the center of the great arena. The sound throughout the stadium quieted as the announcer spoke up. Competitors ready! His voice boomed. Del Pony moved to eject. With Twilight by her side, Trixie was ready for anything. Then, broadcast said, let the duel begin! A horn sounded from atop the stands, and immediately the 4 ponies launched into action. Trixie made to cast a quick force spell to knock Flare off balance. It was Twilight's horn that lit up first. Twilight thrust forward to fire a beam of purple light straight towards Rose, who had already started channeling her own spell. Flare stepped in before he could connect. Conjured up a tall, flat mirror of thin air between Twilight and Rose, catching the beam in mid-flight. The mirror shattered to sparkling dust, but it reflected the spell right back towards Twilight. She barely managed to jump inside in time to avoid it. Sensing an opening, Trixie unloosed her own spell with Flare. A beam of light deckled to Twilight shot from her horn and hurled towards him. It looked like it would connect, right up until Rose pushed past Flare and cast a spread of magical red orbs onto the path of Trixie's spell. Only one of the orbs actually connected with the beam, whilst the others flew past Trixie's head and fizzled out against the ground. But the collision caused a bright flash and a crack of lightning as both spells exploded into a harmless fountain of sparks. They canceled each other out. Flare was next to attack, whilst Trixie guarded in Twilight attempted to throw Rose off balance. In seconds, the arena was awash with light and color, a crackle of magic, and spells flew every which way between the 4 duelists. Trixie fought hard to try and knock Flare back, but she stayed close to Twilight in order to protect her if necessary. Every time she came close to bypassing Flare's defenses and landing an attack, Rose would step in and deflect it. Just the same, Flare would jump into action whenever Rose was targeted, get her out of harm's way. It was just after a flashy, magical, and ultimately unsuccessful string of fireworks aimed at disorienting both her rivals that Trixie staggered back, panting heavily and knowing she overdone it. Sure enough, Flare and Rose both saw the opening, but the supermodel was the first to step forward and attack. Trixie couldn't react fast enough. See, Criticism watched another orb of red light soar straight towards her. There was a flash of light, and Twilight appeared in front of Trixie, with her own horn alight brilliant purple, a swift flick of her head as she knocked the orb off course, sending it flying harmlessly to the far wall. Before Trixie could so much as say thank you, Twilight stepped forward, twisted her body, and thrust her horn towards Rose, launching a counterattack in the form of a powerful jet of water summoned from her horn. Flare was there in an instant, standing between Twilight and Rose once again, with his eyes narrowed and serious. As the water jet reached the space before him, harmlessly spraying water droplets across the arena, everywhere but he and Rose, a water parting spell. Panting a little herself, Twilight stepped back alongside Trixie, shook her head. "It's no good," said Twilight. "We won't hit him like this. They're defending each other too well." Trixie scowled, not taking her eyes off of Flare as he and Rose began to circle them slowly. She hated to admit it, but Twilight was right. Those two made a very good team. They covered each other's backs, and when one didn't anticipate attack, they both together. Trixie agreed. "We had to split them up." Twilight bit her lip. "I know, but I don't like the idea of us splitting up to do that." Trixie shook her head. "Me neither. But unless we could take one of them out of the duel, we'll have to take our chances." She narrowed her eyes at Flare, who was muttering under his breath to his partner, no doubt forming tactics of his own. He was already looking at Trixie, but she shifted his presence ever so slightly to give her that look. "We have to go through with this. It's going to come down to me and him." "Wait," Twilight said, perking up at Trixie's side. "Take one of them out of the duel." Trixie cast her a glance. "What?" "I'm not sure, but no. Yes, it'll work!" Twilight stayed her stance. Trixie saw the tiniest smirk spread onto her partner's face. "Trixie, I have a spell," she said. "It'll only take a moment, but I had to concentrate." Away, Flare stopped muttering to Rose, apparently having finished discussing. Trixie felt ominous vibes in the air. "What kind of spell?" she asked. "It's an imprisonment spell that Princess Celestia tried to teach me a while ago," Twilight explained. "It's just what we need." "Try to teach you," said Trixie. "Just trust me," said Twilight. "I could do it, I promise." Trixie felt compelled to look across at Twilight, so much so she actually pried her eyes away from Flare. Twilight was looking right back at her, smiling the same way as before. And Trixie did trust her. There was no question about it. "Fine," said Trixie, refocusing on Flare, who was still slowly circling. "I'll distract them. Leave it to me." Trixie felt one last flash of a smile from Twilight before the purple unicorn turned her head and lowered it. Soft light began to emanate from Twilight's horn. Trixie stepped forward and drew herself up, meaning to draw attention away from Twilight. She flicked back her hair and took a deep breath and closed her eyes, focusing her magic into the most awe-grabbing spell she could imagine. When her eyes flashed open, the glow cast a light across the stone floor in front of her. Magic flared from her horn, whilst Flare and Rose looked on, preparing to defend themselves for whatever Trixie had to throw at them. She smirked. She had a feeling they wouldn't be prepared for this. And they weren't. Flare and Rose both recoiled as Trixie stepped forwards and sent a huge burst of light, so bright even drew a startled cry from the audience. 6 stars of pulsing white light, each the size of a large stallion, flashed into existence around Twilight and Trixie, began to swirl Trixie's will, forming a great circle. The poorly masked look of surprise on Flare's face was only enough to distract Trixie for a scarce few seconds, before she felt the strain that the spell put on her. It suddenly felt it was a buffalo had jumped onto her back, and her knees almost buckled under the weight. But she held firm and shifted her hose to keep herself upright. An arcane wind tugged at the ends of her mane. She could almost feel an electric prickle across her face from all the magic air. In other circumstances, she would have stopped to appreciate how amazing the spell must have looked from afar. But that thought was stricken from her mind in a second. There was too much at stake to let herself lose concentration. Flare's expression shifted as he watched the spell unfold. A few seconds passed before his eyes resettled on Trixie. A few more before he seemed to find what he was looking for. Rose was glancing at him to ask what he was supposed to do, clearly taken off guard by the spell. In response, Flare calmly raised a placating hoof towards her and stood, watching Trixie, as if he knew all he had to do was wait. He clearly seen the strain that was on Trixie's face. Her brows knit and her jaw clenched as he struggled to maintain the spell. He knew he couldn't keep it up for long. Strangely enough, he wasn't smirking. He was right. In one thing at least. Trixie could already feel her concentration slipping. Aura slowed down, and the light they cast began to flicker and weaken. In seconds, the spell would fail completely and leave her open to attack. "Trixie, now!" cried Twilight. All too happy to let her partner take over. Trixie released her spell and let out a strained breath as she had been holding. The auras vanished and the light dimmed, but the magical prickle stayed in the air. Twilight Sparkle jumped forwards, horn ablaze, as he planted her hose at Trixie's side. As he lowered her head, and what was sound somewhere between the grunt and the yell, focused all the magic coursing through her body into a blast of color, aimed straight at Desert Rose. Less than a second to react, Desert Rose herself was caught off guard. Though she adjusted her stance to try to deflect the attack, it wasn't enough. Flare's reflexes were quicker, though. He managed to steady his stance in time. He held his horn forwards, as if willing his magic to a visible shield between Rose himself and Twilight's attack. The blast struck a moment later. Flare was thrown backwards through the air as the spell was overpowered. The clouds of magic seemed to explode in a flash of white. Arcs of purplish lightning shot every which way from the impact, one of which struck Rose in the chest. Time seemed slow before Trixie's eyes as she watched the spell take effect. Lights of blue magic shone up from the ground beneath Rose, encompassing her. There was an infinitely small, short pause before the light intensified. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the light vanished, leaving in its place a pyramid of ice. Instead of which, Rose was suspended, like a still life Pegasus in flight. Trixie's reflexes kicked in. She hopped to one side to avoid the magical arc shooting straight towards her. Luckily, she was fast enough to dodge it. It dissipated harmlessly to the ground in her hose. From this new angle, though, she had a perfect view of her partner. Barely a second had passed since Twilight had let off her spell, so she couldn't have a chance to recover. Thus was in no position to dodge the rebounding arc of her own magic, which struck her crying in the chest. Twilight let out a yelp as she was knocked back off her hose, and the blue light surrounded her as well. "Twilight!" Trixie cried, so by the time the spell had already done its work. The light crystallized around Twilight, leaving her suspended in the air, as the teal distance above the ground, in a pyramid of ice. No sooner had Trixie regained her bearings than she dashed forward to help. She reared up on her hind legs and pressed her hose against the chill ice, staring into Twilight's frozen fish eyes. Her eyes were shut tight in her crins, full hose retracted against her chest, in a pose that would have been utterly adorable in another time and place. "Hold on," said Trixie. "I'll get you out." Bessie summoned a basic heat spell, tapped her horn against the pyramid. Almost immediately, she felt her spell taking place. Its warmth spraying out over the surface and reaching inward toward Twilight. Trixie's ear perked up as she heard a subtle but dreadful whistle from across the arena. She ducked and pulled back as a blast of magic shot over her head, kinking up the loose strands of her mane, already knowing the culprit. She turned to throw a savage glower at him. Flare, like Trixie, dodged the chaotic effects of Twilight's spell. He stood a good 15 paces away, fair distance apart from his frozen partner. His own eyes fixed firmly at Trixie. Now he was smirking. Somare knew what had to be done. He looked back at Twilight's frozen form for a brief but infinitely thoughtful moment, fantasizing about a way to free Twilight without Flare's interference. That thing might take him on together. But even if there was a way, Parver knew this had been coming. A conversation between she and Flare, one-on-one. In one resolved moment, Trixie leaned forwards and ran a hoof around Twilight's prison. Silence promised that she was still there, still looking out for her. It was reassurance for Trixie herself as much as it was for Twilight, as she turned to face Flare, narrowing her eyes and stepping forward. "Ready to duel!"